stop to just let people in as they come. So please bear with me. Um, so once again, thank you everyone for joining in. Good evening. I hope you've had a nice day and a week. Welcome to the September edition of the TTA online webinar series focusing on sporting schools. Before we begin, I would like to quickly do an acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which this event is taking place and pay our respects to Indigenous elders of the past, present, and emerging. I personally am tuning in from the Ghana land, from the traditional lands of the Ghana people. Feel free to drop it in the chat where you are all tuning from. Sovereignty has never been ceded. It will always be, and it was always and will always be Aboriginal land. We also recognize those whose ongoing efforts to protect and promote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures will leave a lasting legacy for future elders and leaders. A quick introduction of myself. My name is Anshu Thakran, and I work at Table Tennis Australia as the National Participation and Development Coordinator, and I've been in the role for just over 2 years. Prior to this, I was in uni completing my master's in sports management, and I have played table tennis myself back in India for over a decade. I had the opportunity to represent my state, Delhi, at nationals for 5 years before moving to Melbourne. Where I also began my coaching experience and coached across schools in Australia for 2 years. I then moved to Adelaide to commence my role with Table Tennis Australia. And as you can see, like with most of you, I'm sure table tennis just follows me wherever I go, or the other way around. So in my role, I look after the sporting schools program and also have the opportunity to drive the Women and Girls Working Group and strategy. So just a couple of housekeeping tips, I guess, before we start. This meeting is, the recording of the session is in progress and it will be available to view on the Table Tennis Australia website afterwards. During the session, if you could please keep your microphones on mute, although please feel free to raise your hands or drop questions in the chat. If you have any, I envision we would have the opportunity in between and at the end of the session for questions and feedback. So yep, I guess let's get right into it. Overview of today's session, we will be focusing on increasing the knowledge and understanding of clubs and associations and coaches, mainly on the sporting schools program, so you can better communicate with schools in your local communities more effectively and confidently. We will also cover a few major aspects of the sporting schools program, starting from its structure, its link to community sport, how schools receive their funding, and then perhaps get a bit more specific to talk about table tennis within sporting schools, how schools receive resources in terms of equipment, coaching, and online education, what their booking process looks like, and how coaches and clubs are sourced to facilitate that delivery. Finally, we will delve into the benefits of getting involved in the program as either an individual coach or a coaching provider, as well as the process of getting involved and just in closing, after we had the opportunity to give feedback and ask questions and share some of our experiences with each other. So schools participation, as you can see, driving participation across schools is key to the participation strategy at Table Tennis Australia. You'll see here on the left-hand side that it is a key priority of the TTA Strategic Plan 2023-2025 to create and deliver programs catering to children and young people. And as demonstrated by the 2022 participation census, just over 30% of the overall participation was driven by school students. Needless to say, of course, that these figures combine participation across national, state, and club level. However, a key contributor to this level of participation is definitely the sporting schools program. So what is sporting schools? I believe most of you are aware that it is an Australian government-run initiative. It's managed by the Australian Sports Commission. It is aimed at getting more children playing the sport and getting them physically active. So Australian Sports Commission are doing this by providing support to schools in terms of funding, So schools can deliver free programs and encourage more students and their families to benefit from it. Now, a key objective of the program is to bring schools and communities, sporting organizations, including clubs and associations, together so that more play and opportunities can actually be organized outside of the program as well. So, Table Tennis Australia is one of the partnering NSOs, and we work directly with the Australian Sports Commission to manage the promotion and delivery of table tennis through sporting schools across the country. Building community sporting opportunities. As I mentioned, a key focus is to make sure that play and opportunities can be organized even outside of the sporting schools program. So it is certainly an important objective from a sporting schools perspective. The intention is that at the end of each program, a link is formed between the NSO, the state, club, schools, and parents to encourage and then sustain future engagement. So by giving an opportunity to clubs and coaches to bring their expertise to school, the program sort of provides a platform for them to build relationships at the local level. That that we understand would further reduce the need for a lot of NSO or middle party administration, as schools would be deeply connected with table tennis opportunities in their local areas. Of course, it is also an opportunity for coaches and teachers to improve their knowledge and upskill through the practical experiences that are provided through the program. So now we talked about how sporting schools help schools with the support in terms of funding. In itself, sporting schools is a $240 million initiative, and Australian Sports Commission provides grants between $1,000 to $3,600 per primary school. They also offer grants to a very targeted sphere of secondary schools, and the criteria ranges from size and strength of the school to the number of participants being involved in the program, perhaps looking at whether it's a regional or remote school, also providing more support for special schools, and whether or not if they were offered funding before. So there's heaps of criteria that sporting schools look at before they can start supporting the school in that capacity. Now, schools use this funding to buy equipment, pay for coaching fee, or pay for online resources or any other educational materials. So there are, as you can see here, the funding opens each term for 2 weeks. There are 4 rounds of funding every year, which is aligned with 4 school terms across the year, and each funding round is open for a 2-week window. For example, grant applications for term 2, 2024 would open mid to the end of term 1. So schools can plan their sporting calendars for that term much in advance. Now, a few weeks prior to this window is an ideal time for us as a community, and also for TTA to heavily start promoting and notifying our networks of schools and coaches and clubs and member associations to maximize on this funding opportunity and let the schools know that they have that kind of money available to avail our sporting opportunity services. Now, up until this point, does anyone have any questions? All right, no worries. Maurice, did you have a question?
No, all good. Continue.
Perfect. Thanks, Maurice. All right, so we'll move on. As we head over to Spinnaroos in schools. Now, as you would have probably attended a webinar 2 months earlier, which was targeted on Spinnaroos. So Spinnaroos is our Table Tennis Australia's entry-level program for children aged 5 to 12. In the webinar that was delivered 2 months earlier, the Spinnaroos program and it was focused around delivery in a club environment. Spinnaroos in schools is the version that's been adapted to a school environment specifically for primary schools. So the aim of the program is to introduce students in schools to table tennis through a progressive range of fun and innovative lessons and activities. And the lesson plans have all been developed with the help of your leading Australian table tennis coaches, and all content nearly aligned to the Australian curriculum. So the program is designed, program was intentioned to be designed in a way that is easy to teach as well as easy to pick up in terms of learning. It includes play and skill development. It mainly follows a game sense approach of introducing games and activities towards the end of every session, so that students have a good first experience, especially within that school environment with our dynamic sport. But most importantly, and from a school's perspective, it is the best choice of sport all year round, which is an inherent nature of table tennis. It is an ideal choice for schools as a winter sport, with term two and term three being one of our busiest terms, but also because it's fun, it's safe, it's challenging at the same time, and so easy to deliver by someone with a non-table tennis background, like teachers, which I'm sure you'll understand the importance of as we go ahead and discuss some major components of the program. So Spinneroos, as you can see, is what we deliver as part of the Sporting Schools program. Program components. Now, once schools apply for funding, and once their grant is approved, schools can select from a number of different packages as outlined here. The main packages that the program has been categorized into is the teacher delivered and the coach delivered Spinneroos packages. So the program can be delivered by a teacher or an endorsed table tennis coach or a coaching provider, which could be a club or association. Schools also have the ability to choose from a range of different equipment packages, and TTA, Table Tennis Australia, usually helps them to customize a package to suit their sporting school's budget and their program requirements, depending on what they're after in that specific term. Most of the time, it is a combination of coaching and equipment, but depending on how much funding schools have, they are sometimes restricted in their ability to go for everything. So if a school does not have any equipment whatsoever, we usually encourage them to purchase some in that specific term and then perhaps go for coaching over the next funding round. Um, Setting up equipment then pushes them to engage with table tennis in the future terms and either run programs themselves or connect with a club or get an expert coach to come over to the school, which has been a preferred method for a lot of schools that operate on limited funding. Equipment and environment. So with the equipment and program environment, we work with the philosophy that, and I'm sure you all know as coaches, we work with the philosophy that every table is a table tennis table. If a school has only enough funding to get a coach or any basic equipment, then they have very well the ability to modify the space, to modify the equipment, and work with the coach to use the resources that they have in place to make sure that the delivery still goes ahead. So we normally encourage schools to use classroom tables as well and trestle tables instead if they don't have enough budget to go for a table tennis table, and perhaps just get the retractable nets, which are then suitable to use over any table. Out here, you can see a glimpse of the equipment packages that Table Tennis World, who are our official equipment supplier for sporting schools, they have customized for Table Tennis Australia as sort of like starter packs for schools. What these packages do is that they make it easier for the school to select how to spend their funding, and of course, it works best for us because we are here to make sure it's as easy as possible for the schools to choose how to spend their funding. In addition, though, they also have the ability to mix and match individual items. So this is not the only options, but then all of these equipment items are available for them to select individually if they wanted to make a package like that. An increasing challenge, which is a pointer that I potentially forgot to put in here, is that an increasing challenge that we're facing in this area is that the price of equipment and delivery costs, it continues to increase, whereas the funding that the schools receive does not correspond to a similar rate of increase. So it is, I think, important to keep in mind that schools are offered best value for the program going forward as well. And keeping costs controlled is very important for us to ensure that we're not pricing ourselves out of the market or even in comparison with other sports. So we want to make sure that that is significant, of course, with the success of the program. But that sometimes what that pushes the schools to do is that they have to choose between equipment or coaching, and we don't want that to happen. We want them to be able to avail as many options as possible. So I think that's an increasing challenge that we're facing, and we're trying to, of course, work with. Spinneroo's teacher delivery. So teacher delivery Spinneroo's package allows your teachers, your high performance, health and physical education professionals to access Spinneroo's online coaching platform. This is the Spinneroo's online coaching platform includes access to your comprehensive 4 to 8 week lesson plans, videos, activity cards, and guidance to help teachers with program delivery if they're unable to secure services of an expert coach or a club. So they have that option available. The lesson plans are housed on an online Moodle platform. So as you can see, this is just a snapshot of that Moodle platform, which has access to all these modules and videos and activity cards for teachers to be able to incorporate in their program. I think the best feedback we've received from a school about Spinneroo's is that it is suitable for students of all abilities. Modifications are available across every activity and exercise of the program, which definitely makes the instructions very easy for beginner coaches and teachers to explain to different groups of students. We have also partnered with Special Olympics Australia to develop a program suited to special education environments and students with intellectual disability and or autism. This is simply an adapted version of Spinneroo's, where language, visuals, and instructions of some or most of the activities have been modified to specifically cater to this group. Now, TTA participation and the para team have also collectively produced the Para Spinneroo's program, which includes lesson plans to introduce children with a physical disability to our sport. Again, I think before I move ahead, I'm just quickly checking if there were any questions up until this point.
And so a bit later on, I guess we'll get the opportunity to talk about Spinneroos and how that can be used in the school environment, delivering programs with limited time.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, sure. That's fine. I'll let you continue at this stage.
No worries. Thanks, man. All right, then moving on to Spinneroo's coach and club delivery. So just like schools have the option of delivering the program themselves, they can also choose to have an endorsed table tennis coach come in and deliver the program for them. In my experience, it has been a 50-50 split with respect to what the teachers opt for. Schools in metro or well-connected regions generally prefer to have a coach or a club deliver the program, whereas more regional and remote schools, they resort to running the sessions themselves because there's not much workforce within regional and remote areas, which is certainly a key focus from a sporting schools perspective at the Australian Sports Commission as well. Now, I think for us as a sport, this is where key opportunity lies for our coaches and clubs. And at the local level, the coaches and clubs are the main drivers of the program. As you can see here, sporting schools is a paid opportunity for coaches, and depending upon a bunch of different factors like funding, whether it's a private or a public school, how much travel distance is there for the coach to travel to the school to deliver those sessions, what the timetable looks like, how many sessions per week, and then how many weeks the school is running the program for. And also whether the funding is being split across multiple sports. So there's a number of factors that come at play when we look at how much how much coaches can earn from a program, but coaches usually can expect to get paid anywhere between 200 to $1,600 per program. So yes, this is definitely like a wide spectrum, but generally when a school prefers a particular coach and they like the services of a coach, they return asking particularly for that coach, which is a very positive outcome for all of us, especially when it comes to building a relationship between the club and the school. So there are 20 in terms of environment. Again, there's 20 to 25 kids, and the maximum is capped at 30, but there's usually 20 to 25 kids in one class, and there is always most of the times that there's teacher support within the class so that the coaches can focus on sport specific delivery. So I think as an aspiring and a new coach, that is a great opportunity to just focus on upskilling yourself, because the environment is controlled in the way that sporting schools and the schools look after all the regulations, and all the coaches are there to do is to focus on program delivery, and making sure that the kids are learning uh, table tennis skills. So as a coach, you gain access to a range of TTA and partner education resources, including Spinneroo's material, Special Olympics training, para resources, which then allows you to focus on your own professional development as a coach as well. So engaging in a program, in the sporting schools program, it not only provides coaches with the exposure to different groups of schools and students, but also sort of develops their capability and become more inclusive as a sport provider, which is definitely an invaluable skill to have in this field. And then finally, Table Tennis Australia also provides you with the promotional support to bring your services to the schools and to ensure that you have the right resources to be able to communicate effectively to the schools. Now, as we speak of promotional support, I guess we would all agree on how challenging it is to get into the doors of schools. And if you are interested in coaching in schools or want the schools to come to the club, I think perhaps this would be beneficial to you. TTA have put together a sporting schools promotional toolkit, which includes templates and flyers, high resolution images, important information to make it easy for you to promote your programs and pathways to the school. A couple of tips that go along with it, in terms of marketing and communications, is that uh, it is ideal to start where you are, which means that it is valuable to look into your own networks of teachers, your kids' schools. Maybe you are a teacher yourself and also an accredited coach, in which case you are the ideal ambassador to drive the program at your school. So, whichever way, it is important to notify your circles that this opportunity is available, and then connecting those links at the ground level. Once you get to the point where you have the right contact, uh, I think initiating the conversation, you start talking to the school about including table tennis in their calendar. If you do that for term one, only then are they likely to apply for term two or term three funding. And then finally, offer program delivery support. You offer your help with coaching and program delivery. And once the schools know that there is someone already willing and available to run the program, it is very likely that they will apply for funding, because that reduces half the effort on their part in planning and organizing to go out looking for coaches, and consequently then being turned down or having to return the funding. And that is I think a big challenge from schools perspective, because they sometimes have to face NSOs having to turn down the opportunity because they can't find a coach or a club willing to deliver a coach run program for them. So if schools know that there are there's support available in terms of coaching in their local areas, then they are very likely to apply for the funding and also book the program with the coach in mind. And in the additional comment section, they can just mention that this is the particular coach that I want to go for. And that gives the coach the opportunity to, of course, run the program themselves, which is an incentive in itself. So by offering support, if you do have the capacity for it, you will ensure that you're building a long-lasting connection with the school, um, which translates well into the club transition. So, program journey, and this is more, I think, from the perspective of uh, booking process, from a school's perspective, and also how bookings are managed at the NSO level, at the Table Tennis Australia level. So you have the grant applications that open for a 2 week window, and that's when schools apply for their funding. That's when schools enter interest for all the sports that they'd like to deliver over that term. They receive the grant outcome in over the next 2 weeks. And once successful, the schools then book the Spinnaroos program through the Australian Sports Commission's centralized online portal, which is connected to NSOs, and it is also further connected to the sport coaching providers and clubs and associations who are part of the sporting schools program. Following that, the school sport, we at Table Tennis Australia, we contact the school sport coordinator or the HPE professional to find out what is it they need in terms of running a program, and how to get the ground running in terms of coaching and equipment requirements. We then reach out to Table Tennis World if the school is looking to purchase equipment, and then finalize that on a different radar. But then, when a school is looking to get a coach to visit the school to run sessions, we contact interested and available coaches within that region, and providers sort of within that region. If the coaches are interested and if they're available to run the program, then we connect them with the schools. So finalized coaches, as you can see here, and clubs connect with the schools to deliver the program over. Sorry about that. I'm working from home, so I think there was a car that just rushed by. Anyway, so finalized coaches and clubs connect with the schools to deliver the program over the confirmed dates and timetable. And following delivery of the program over the 4 to 6 weeks, school and coach payments are finalized after the final session is delivered. And after that, we do an end of term program feedback and evaluation, as part of which we send out a survey to the school. We send out some Find a Club flyers and links to the school, and also information around the next round of funding and how they can get involved, which with each program, whether that's a coach or a teacher delivered program, the idea is to connect the school to a local club or association and support that transition of students to club pathways, and then expose so that they're exposed to more playing opportunities. Moving on to success measures.
And can I just ask a
Yes,
question at this stage?
yes, of course.
Just on those last two points in that previous page,
Yeah.
the end of term feedback and evaluation. I know that I mean, I provide something via email, but is there anything formal that we're supposed to do, or is that feedback also coming from the school, not so much the coach? And in terms of Club Connect, while I might be operating in my area and I hand out brochures, and in some occasions we'll have the last session at our club rather than in the school environment, that's as far as I guess we take it. Do you do anything additionally to try and cause a connection between the school and the club?
Right. Thanks, Maury. So I think in terms of the end of term program feedback and evaluation, I think it's more, like I said, about sending out the Find a Club links, and that's mostly for teacher delivered programs who have not already been connected to coaches and clubs. In terms of a coach delivered program, such as the ones that you deliver at Southern Table Tennis, Maurice, the ideal way is to either conduct incursions at the school, or, like you said, get the school to run the last session at the club. In which way we can provide the opportunity to the club to take over and then promote their programs from there onwards. So the end of term program feedback evaluation includes a survey, which Table Tennis Australia has, and also um, the evaluation survey then that sporting schools send out after each term, which more focuses on a generic sport delivery, but our survey focuses more on the booking process, the quality of equipment, the quality of coaching, and or any other concerns or challenges or great feedback that the school would like to share, and if they'd like to perhaps be in if they perhaps want to be connected with clubs in their local region, and then looking out for whether we have an opportunity or a club near the school that we can connect them to. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, it does. Guess I was just looking to see whether there's anything further formal that's going on that I'm not aware of. But as you know, having done it for what 8 years now, whatever it is, then you do have issues in terms of no one at the school kind of assisting you deliver the program. Hence, you bring in another coach, and also the equipment can be very poor. Like the 28 sessions I just did it recently at one of the schools, I'm dragging the tables along the floor because the casters are all missing. So I guess and their bats were just the $2 ones probably. So if you're expecting the kids to do something and get rewarded for doing the right thing, the bats aren't going to provide that for you. So that's why I just wondering whether there's anything formal that, while it can come from the school, it also should come from the coach as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think in terms of the formal capacity, until last year, till term two, sporting schools and Australian Sports Commission they did pilot the Club Connect program, which entailed offering much more funding. And I think funding up to $5,000 to schools to make sure that they can have that quality equipment in place, and that they can also deliver programs after school hours, and can also fund transport to be able to travel to the clubs if needed, um, to support that delivery. So that pilot ran for a year, and I know that it was discussed 3 months ago at the last sporting schools NSO partner meeting, where the results showed that most of the NSOs were in support for the Club Connect program to continue, which means providing more funding to the schools from a sports commission perspective. So so if that happens, then we would definitely be eager to again participate in that program, because the Club Connect program, as far as I remember, did give um, great opportunities for a lot of our clubs here in SA, but also across the country to be involved. And like you said, with the equipment quality, um, Maurice, that's the increasing challenge that I was talking about in the equipment section, was that with that limited funding, well, when the schools want a coach and also want equipment, they sometimes resort to local equipment providers, and get non-endorsed products, just to make sure that that program is going ahead, which uh, sometimes does tamper with the quality of the program. Um, but I think formally we can't ask coaches to source equipment for the schools, because it's the school's responsibility to do that as part of their funding. We definitely encourage if clubs can have if they have the capacity to provide equipment, such as yourself, you take your set of bats and your nets and everything to the school to ensure that a quality experience is provided. Uh, we've observed that not a lot of individual coaches have the capacity to do that. So when it comes to communicating to schools, I think it's just about keeping consistent and letting them know that um, that this would usually come out of the funding, but we can certainly check if the particular coach or club in question has the ability to do that for us at this stage.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Mary. All right. So the success measures. Now, earlier in one of the slides, we discussed how it's challenging. I think it was the promotional and communications aspect, how it's challenging to get into the doorsteps of schools, which directly sort of correlates to our ability to promote table tennis among schools. So, needless to say that an effective marketing and communication strategy is crucial to increasing awareness of our sport in schools. And this links back to the TTA strategic plan and the need to focus on building the profile of our sport at a national level. But we've observed that it is also achievable at the community level. And in fact, it is more powerful at the community level. So, some sporting sports programs over the past few years have definitely allowed us to create that link between high performance and participation as well. You can see here in the photos, we've got Sam von Einem at Grange Primary School at one of the term 2 programs last year, term 3 program last year in 2023, 2022. I have all my dates mixed up. But yeah, whenever we have the capacity and the opportunity to organize something like this, we attempt to get athletes to visit a sporting school session uh, and inspire kids with their story and their table tennis skills, which the kids are super amazed by. And it is wonderful to be able to see the students and the school inspired and so engaged with a role model, to see a role model in the sport. Now, like I said, this is Sam von Einem, our national para athlete, and this is at Grange Primary School, which was Aaron. So Aaron Tuckfield, the senior manager at the participation and development team at Table Tennis Australia. This is his kids' school, and this was at the term 3 program last year. This is out here in South Australia, where we are able to where we're able to facilitate some of these visits. So Sam has been kind to help us along with Woodville Table Tennis Club, Southern Table Tennis Club, also with East Adelaide Table Tennis Club. And they've helped out with attending many more sporting schools programs out here in South Australia, which then allows the clubs to introduce their programs and pathways to students and their families. So these events are also great opportunities for us at Table Tennis Australia to cover and share the success stories with the whole community. All right, so how can you get involved? A bunch of different ways. There's the option of becoming an individual sporting schools coach, for which we require you to have a valid working with children check and a minimum TOPS accreditation. You will also be given access to the Spinneroos online coaching course to familiarize yourself with the program. If you are a club or a coach provider, you can get involved as an organization with the program. It is possible that you have a number of coaches, at the club, and then that means you have a great capacity to deliver multiple programs in your region. So this means that you can get involved as a coaching provider, which will help you in widening your reach to more schools within the local area. As a provider, you will also get your own access to the sporting schools portal, where you can manage and assign bookings to your coaches. Other than that, if you are keen to visit schools to conduct come and try events, engage them in a club in your club competitions, or simply develop connections, please, you are very welcome to contact your state and territory associations or myself at Table Tennis Australia. We can introduce you to schools that have been previously engaged in the sporting schools program, as we have access to the contact list, and it is there for promotional purposes. So there are heaps of ways to get involved and hit the ground running. I think we're almost getting close to the end of the presentation. And this is, yeah, I'm sure you must be feeling like those kids in the photograph by now. But does anyone have any other questions and comments? Any personal experience you would like to share for the benefit of other coaches who might end up watching the recording, or tips and techniques? Yeah. Darshan?
Yeah, hi, Anshul. Good evening, and thanks for such an insightful session. Much appreciated. This is actually for the very first time I've actually been on a webinar. So yeah, it's quite an eye opener for me. Well, so I'm based in Sydney. I live in a suburb called Westmead, and last year in September, I did go through the tops and the level 1 certification in Sydney, and then thereafter, I'm associated with Venti League's table tennis club in Western Sydney, and then I do play in Grade B, the club tournaments which are actually happening, and currently we are going through the season, which is going to go until December. So just my question is actually, so last year I actually was. I went through the coaching, like the tops and level 1, and then I did connect with my daughter's school, which is very close to my house. It's by the name Westmid Christian Grammar School, and did some volunteering, and I was able to generate some good interest from the principal, like some of the management committee members, students, and the coordinators there. So it was quite insightful. But then I think to the point which came up on the call a while ago, the school is quite poor in terms of their table tennis infra. Like, they had those $2 rackets, and, I literally carried the TT balls from, my own place, and the table was really in shambles, like, so what's the best way for some of these schools which are not even, they don't even know that there is table tennis Australia, there are such programs which are running. So how, what's the best way to create this awareness at the grassroots level? And what, so how, so I'm not saying that that there is definitely going to be a magic wand, and you need to be doing it. I am very keen to participate in such awareness programs. I would like to, because I work for Microsoft, I'm into sales. So for me, just meeting customers day in day out is what my role is. So I'm quite keen to do this in my free time, and try to go visit schools and create this awareness. But what kind of support mechanism is available for someone like me wanting to do something in this realm of creating awareness, and just take the schools through that journey slide which you went through, which
Yeah.
is quite beneficial for someone like me to understand this whole process. So so are you the go-to person, or is there someone associated with the NSW or Sydney, or Western Sydney?
Yeah.
So just want to know about the mechanism. Sorry for being so long, but
Not at
just
all.
had too many things going on in my mind. So
Yeah,
thought
no,
of,
not at all. Of course,
yeah.
it's too many links to of course connect with as well. So first of all, thank you, and also I'm glad that you found the webinar so far useful, and it's also great to see such passion in being able to in wanting to introduce table tennis at your kids' school. We've had um, coaches in similar situations recently, having signed up to the sporting schools program, who some of whom have been successful in being able to introduce a program. And usually, there's no best way or the right way to approach this, but it's always a very personal approach. Sometimes when it comes to connecting at the community level with a school, like I may have touched upon at some point earlier, it's also about finding the right contact. It's either being in touch with someone who is in a decision making position, and also letting them know that there is support
Mhm.
and resources available. So for someone, as you said, for someone like you who's in a coaching position, who is in a position to offer support and their skill in terms of delivering the program, it's about
Yeah.
letting the school know that that there are timelines to the funding, that this is
Yeah.
when they should apply, this is when they will receive the funding, and how to make a booking on the portal. So the easier you make it for the schools to get involved in the process, the better, the more chances of them actually going through with it. So for you, we do have the promotional resources in place, which includes a set of. So we've put together a promotional toolkit on the Google Drive, which includes
Yeah.
your sporting schools guidelines, the whole process, and then also flyers and
Yeah.
your notices. From a termly basis, for you to be able to put on the school's notice board, and also let the school know that we have email communications in place that we can send out to you, that you can share with them to keep
Right.
on track of how the funding is open and closed. But then also, when I remember you touched upon the equipment aspect of things,
Yes.
we do have a coach, is in touch with us in other schools, who's restricted in their ability to fund all different aspects of the program, but there's no one at the school who can deliver the program themselves. So they need the coach
Mhm.
and they also need the equipment. So I think
Yeah.
in the beginning, it's sort of a compromise. Is that in the first instance or in the initial stages, you allow the school to spend the funding on at least spend major part of the funding on equipment, and then let them deliver say only a 4 week program with
Yeah.
1 hour session each week. That would make sure that
Mm.
they're not spending as much on coaching, but they
Right.
now have equipment set up. So when the funding opens again, they can apply for the funding, and that's when they can go for coaching in a greater capacity than they could the last time. So I think
Right.
it's building from ground up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. So is there like, because there are like 7 schools in the vicinity where I'm living, and I'm willing to, just carry the flag of Tablet Australia and go, meet up with all those principals and just create awareness, leverage the content what we have got in the Google Drive you mentioned. But is there someone who is going to support me in this engagement? Because I'll be happy to have someone like next to me as in virtually,
Yeah,
or probably someone on the Teams call, right? So we can
yeah,
deliver that to one school
that,
together, and then I
yeah,
can just be on my own, right, for the next ones.
yeah, that would be me. So,
Okay,
of
wonderful.
course, that would be me at
Cool.
Table Tennis Australia, because my role involves me looking after those bookings and making sure those coach allocations are happening. So, when the
Wonderful.
school has applied for the funding, they will book a program, and that booking will come through to me. And
Wonderful.
the booking will mention that we prefer Darshan Dhamal as the coach, and that's when I
Mhm.
reach out to you and I let you know that the school is now connected in
Yeah.
terms of having a booking in place, and then you can facilitate the conversation from there. But even before that, at a stage where you perhaps need support in terms of talking to the school about why they should have table tennis at their
Right.
school in the first place, I'd
Mhm.
be more than happy to engage in
Yeah.
those discussions.
Wonderful. Wonderful. No, that's really helpful, and I think your email address is right there on the slide which you're presenting. So, it will be worthwhile for us to be in touch and take it forward from there.
For
But
sure.
much
No,
appreciate all these insights. Really
thank you
helpful.
so much, Darshan. And I'm pretty sure that even other clubs such as Maurice is on the call, and he's done a great job in connecting schools within the southern region of Adelaide. So
Oh,
I'm pretty
nice.
sure that there's other clubs that you will have heaps to learn from as well.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, Maurice, if you did have perhaps any other suggestions for Darshan who's just starting out in his specific vicinity.
Yeah, look, hi. It is a bit
Thanks.
of an approach whereby it's a case of what resources you've got and what the school might relate to. It's a case of perhaps even providing an image which they can put in their local newsletter for the month so they can promote it. But one of the things that I find that works, and I know each of the states have got this, but within South Australia, it's called Sports Voucher. So each of the primary school students through to year 7 or now 8 and 9 in high school have access to $100 once a year for the purposes of registration, membership, etc. So as part of my flyers, etc., I promote that quite a bit, and the parents, a lot of them not aware that they've got access to it, but I make them aware that they've
Yeah.
got access to it. So that encourages them to come along. So in our case, for instance, for $130, we say you can have access to our 10-week Tuesday night program. You get a polo top, you get the 10 weeks of program, you get a bat and a bat cover, all for $130. So all they've got to do is pay the $30. The other $100 comes from their Medicare card,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I then claim online. So that's one aspect to it. But the other aspect is if you can, one of those sessions of the 4 or whatever that might be run in the school, if you can get them to run that last session at the club environment, then that's good, because that way they're touching base with the club, and you've got that connection starting. So at the moment, we've got a junior program with around about 30 boys and girls every Tuesday night, which we run for 10 weeks during the school term. Most of that's happened out of the sporting schools and the follow-up from kids through that. So make sure you give each of the kids a flyer to take home to their mum and dad on the last session that you're going to see them. I guess it's also personal attention. What we've been doing in South Australia is, even though only works out to $50 per coach sort of thing in terms of payment, we generally go in with, we were previously going in with 4 coaches, so that if we had, once we've done certain activities and we split the kids up onto tables, that we have at least a coach on each table to help them learn to serve, do a backhand, forehand, or whatever it might be, because we're not necessarily getting any help from the teachers. They often either disappear or sit in a corner, or even the PE teacher is not available because they've got to wander off and attend to another group of kids who are doing PE out on the main oval or something like that. So we're actually doing it, I guess you could also almost say, on a volunteer basis, where the coaches actually get to share across about 3 or 4 of them $50, which doesn't work out all that well. So they're there for the love of it, not for just for the money.
Yeah, got it. No, that's helpful.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Maurice. And just before closing off, I remember simply you mentioned wanting to talk about the Spinneroo's weekly structure and its appropriateness within the school environment.
Yes, I did. I've now been doing this since 2016, when TTA kind of approached Southern Direct and paid for our polo sporting schools, polo tops, and all that kind of thing. And since then, we've delivered at least 36 programs. I just recently finished one, which was 28 sessions at a school, which include year 1s, year 2s, years 3s, years 4s, 5s, 6s, and 6s. So we had 7 classes, all different age groups, which we were delivering across 4 weeks. That's one hell of a nightmare, really, in terms of 1 minute you're working with someone, with young kids, where they're bouncing balloons or something like that, or just bouncing the ball or hitting against the wall, or fun and games like Simon says, and end up picking up cups and all this kind of stuff, compared to those that you're trying to provide with some kind of skills. So it can be very tricky, and the more resources that you can take in, the better, because the more personal attention the kids get. But I guess the main thing is that most of those programs are for about 45 to 50 minutes and for 4 weeks. So you don't even get half the 8 hours that you would normally need to run a Spinneroo's program. So while I've been doing this for a long time, and I've provided you with some of the documentation on the way I go about it, etc., I am very keen to understand what others are doing, so I can pick up any useful hints or best approaches from what others are doing. So having that kind of network would be useful, which doesn't seem to exist at the moment.
Yep, that's right. No, thanks, Maurice. I think Spinneroo's the program structure, the 8-week structure, which has been adapted off of the Table Tennis England PT Kids program, is definitely more suited to a club environment. And the reason it was introduced within the primary school environment was based upon a review with the Ashford FA organization, as to the fact that that this does have the ability to be modified in terms of the activities that the coaches wish to use, and can be used as a complementary resource to their existing TOPS accreditation, which is why the mandatory for coaches to be able to deliver a program in schools is their TOPS accreditation. That's where they get trained to deliver a program within the school's environment. and then Spinneroos acts as the complementary resource to perhaps work around and then complement their existing coaching practices. So, but this is certainly an important area, even from the participation team's perspective, is that we are after some government funding from the Australian Sports Commission so that we can review the existing program to align it with the primary school curriculum, and then also we can develop a secondary schools program as well, because there's that market that sporting schools are targeting that we currently do not cater to. So I think there will be there's going to be it's essentially a matter of some funding that we are after to be able to review the whole content in terms of how suitable it is to for a school environment. But for now, Spinneroo does offer a brilliant exposure to new coaches, to young coaches within university environments who have time to spare to deliver sporting schools programs in a casual capacity in terms of their introduction to the sport and then having them upscale in that space. So yeah, definitely more work to do there, and a long way to go. But yeah, certainly, I think we're working with the best we have for now.
Anshul, can I suggest that maybe at some stage either an online session exists between those that are delivering in the school environment so they can share the way they're doing things and kind of learn from each other, and like I said, pick the eyes out of things that they might want to introduce themselves, or just to simply see whether they're on track in terms of the way they go about it.
Yep, I think that'd be appetite for that, Maurice. That's a wonderful suggestion. I think to start off with, even if we could do something quarterly, to just engage people to share their experiences over the specific terms, just in alignment with school terms for sporting schools. That is indeed a very good idea and a great takeaway from the session that I would be very interested in implementing.
Just one other thing while I think of it. I had one school that not only obtained equipment and brought us in to deliver coaching, but the school also organised as part of that package for me to deliver 4 hours of coaching to the PE teacher. Now that proved quite useful. He engaged quite well, proved to be quite competent, but also that led to him getting a robot and a catching net and a few other resources as for him to be able to deliver table tennis a bit more effectively within his school environment. The other aspect is you made mention earlier about Sam von Eyman, and of course you came out to the one we had at Flaxmill, whereby both Sam and Mitchell Rogers played, and that went down very well. I've since then been using Mitchell Rogers and Lucas to do a few special ones, and I will use them in the school environment. But it might be useful to build that exhibition match approach in as a package option in terms of sporting schools packages.
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial as a separate product offering as well, Maurice, because sporting schools are now expanding the criteria with which they target schools. So they are increasing their span of products that they offer to schools, and the professional development of teachers is on the very not, of course, not on the top of the list, but it's one of their key priorities. So anything that we're doing in this space, um, I think it's just open to sharing with others and also seeing if this is something we can pilot. Because if we're able to definitely provide evidence to the Sporting Commission that um, that this has been practiced in a community capacity, then we can certainly uplift it and deliver it as a separate offering within the sporting school space. So I'd be happy to chat with you about especially the 4 hours coaching that you mentioned that you were able to provide the teacher with, and And then, of course, with creating a list of ambassadors of sorts, boarding school ambassadors that we can reach out to that could help us, um, do these inspiration incursions at schools. For now, it totally depends upon whether the school has that kind of capacity and if they'd be interested in running something like that at the school or be willing to travel to a club. But I think if we do have that in an organized capacity in a more formal offering, then there'd be more appetite for that.
I certainly think if you can empower the schools, that's great. As part of the sporting schools over the last 7 or 8 years, there's at least another 35 tables in amongst those schools that participated in the program, which is great. So if you can provide some coaching or some basic coaching, I guess, to the PE teachers or the appropriate people, then you can empower them to do the work within the school and just work, because a lot of them, as you know, simply will get the equipment package, but not necessarily the coaching package. One thing I am seeing more of, though, as I start to walk through some of the schools, they have invested in outdoor tables, which probably cost about somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000, and in most cases, I'm seeing kids utilising them during morning recess or lunch or whatever it might be. So there's a movement anyway.
Yeah, that's definitely right, Maurice. There's huge appetite for the outdoor tables in schools. In fact, sometimes that's the only thing they like to spend money on because they don't have to worry about getting coaches or other resources. But we try to move away from that. But it's also a good way to just encourage kids to keep playing in some capacity. So for sure. Well, thank you so much. I think this was a great discussion and quickly just being conscious of running over time. I think before closing off, I'd like you to think about also these questions and apply it to your local context. If possible, think about where schools or sporting schools as a program fits or helps with your participation strategy at the club level, or also as an individual coach, how does it align with your purpose of or with your passion of introducing more children and young people into the sport? Does it allow you to become a better coach, maybe a bigger club? And is it finally again aligning with the vision of creating more community opportunities? And other than that, any other questions or feedback? If you'd like to gain access to these resources, I think in the follow-up to this meeting, I will send everyone the recording and also an access to the promotional resources that we talked about and all of the links that you can head to find more information about the program. But despite that, if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to reach out to me at this email address that's been outlined here. And yes, I think I'll just stop sharing my screen now. And thank you so much again for joining in. Sorry for running a bit over time. I'll also stop the recording.